The deep ocean was once believed to be our final untouched frontier. For centuries, we imagined it as a world beyond human reach, dark, cold, and so remote it seemed immune to modern life. Creatures we barely understood thrived there undisturbed in an ecosystem shaped by time, pressure, and the slow, quiet rhythms of the sea. It was a place of mystery and wonder, far removed from highways, factories, and overflowing landfills. In our minds, what happened on the surface could never truly reach those sunless depths. But that belief has now collapsed. Today, even the most isolated trenches of the ocean are no longer pristine. They are contaminated not by oil spills or abandoned fishing gear, but by something far smaller and more insidious. Trillions of invisible plastic particles have worked their way into the planet's most hidden places. These are not big, floating bottles or bags. They are fragments smaller than grains of sand, drifting unnoticed through every current on Earth. These tiny invaders are reshaping marine ecosystems and leaving a plastic fingerprint on every layer of the sea. This is the story of how microplastics have conquered the ocean, particle by particle, silently and relentlessly. Microplastics may be tiny, but they are everywhere and they are far from harmless. Defined as plastic pieces less than 5 millimeters in size, these fragments are so small they often go unnoticed. Yet their impact is enormous. Scientists categorize them into two main types, primary and secondary. Primary microplastics are manufactured to be tiny from the start, like the microbeads that used to be added to face washes and the raw plastic pellets called nurdles that are shipped globally to produce plastic goods. Though bans have removed some of these from consumer products, countless billions still exist, and nurdle spills remain a major environmental hazard. Secondary microplastics, on the other hand, form when larger plastic debris breaks down over time. Exposure to sunlight, waves, and physical abrasion causes plastic bags, bottles, and packaging to slowly disintegrate into smaller and smaller pieces. These fragments never truly go away. They just become increasingly microscopic, slipping into the food chain and spreading without boundaries. A single plastic bottle discarded 10 years ago may now exist as millions of nearly invisible shards floating through our oceans. The numbers are staggering. Each year, scientists estimate that as much as 23 million metric tons of plastic enter Earth's waterways. On the ocean's surface alone, recent research estimates over 170 trillion plastic particles. But that's just the top layer. Far more plastic lurks beneath, suspended in the water, or settled on the seafloor. We have, intentionally or not, created a synthetic dust that now coats our planet's aquatic systems. And what's most alarming is this: no part of the ocean has been spared. From Arctic ice cores to the remote Southern Ocean, microplastics have been found in every marine sample studied. What was once a rare pollutant has now become a defining feature of the modern ocean. Once microplastics enter the water, they embark on a journey that spans thousands of miles and reaches the planet's most remote and extreme environments. Their path begins near the surface, where lightweight plastics like polyethylene and polypropylene float easily. These particles are quickly swept up by powerful currents and ocean gyres, slow-moving circular systems that trap debris in rotating loops. The best-known example is the Great Pacific Garbage Patch, a sprawling expanse of plastic-rich water between Hawaii and California. But contrary to popular belief, it's not a floating island of trash, it's more like a massive soup of microscopic particles, blending seamlessly into the water. Wind and currents then carry these particles across the globe. Microplastics have been detected in the frozen ice of the Arctic, in the waters surrounding Antarctica, and even in remote coral reefs in the Indian Ocean. Their size allows them to drift unnoticed, bypassing natural barriers and entering ecosystems previously untouched by human influence. But they don't just stay near the surface. Many microplastics sink, sometimes slowly, sometimes rapidly, as algae, bacteria, and other marine organisms attach to floating plastics. They add weight through a process called biofouling. Eventually, the once buoyant plastic becomes heavy enough to descend. Denser plastics like polyethylene, terephthalate, commonly used in beverage bottles, start their downward journey even faster, heading toward the ocean floor from the moment they enter the water. This descent is not random. The ocean column from top to bottom is now filled with what scientists call a plastic smog, a cloudy suspension of particles that never fully settle and never fully disappear. Over time, this smog contributes to what some researchers are calling a new sedimentary layer in the ocean, a geologic record of our plastic era. Perhaps most disturbing is that microplastics have been found at the deepest known point on Earth, the Mariana Trench, nearly 7 miles below the surface. Samples of seafloor sediment taken from this trench contain dense concentrations of plastic particles. These findings make it clear microplastics are not confined to surface pollution. They have colonized the planet's deepest habitats, completing their transformation from coastal runoff to global invader. By the time microplastics reach every level of the ocean, their effects on marine life are no longer subtle. They're devastating. The smallest creatures are the first to suffer. Zooplankton, the microscopic animals that form the base of nearly every marine food web, often mistake plastic particles for food. Consuming this indigestible debris leads to blocked digestive systems, malnutrition, and decreased reproduction rates. When these foundational species are weakened, the consequences ripple upward through the ecosystem. Small fish feed on plastic-filled plankton, then larger predators consume those fish, accumulating plastic with every meal. This process is known as biomagnification, and it ensures that the plastic doesn't just stay in one animal. It builds up over time in predators at the top of the food chain. Tuna, swordfish, and even sharks now carry measurable concentrations of microplastics in their bodies. Recent studies have found plastic in the stomachs of over 60% of examined fish species worldwide. Marine mammals and seabirds are equally vulnerable. Whales, especially filter feeders like blue whales, can swallow millions of microplastic particles each day while feeding. Albatrosses and other seabirds often feed plastic to their young, mistaking it for food. The results are often fatal. In some regions, seabird chicks have been found with stomachs filled with nothing but plastic fragments. But microplastics are more than just physical hazards. They also carry invisible threats. Many plastics are manufactured with additives like flame retardants and phthalates, chemicals known to interfere with hormones and organ function. These additives can leach into animals' tissues after ingestion. Moreover, plastic fragments act like sponges for pollutants already present in the water, absorbing toxic substances like mercury, DDT, and PCBs. When marine creatures ingest these chemically laden particles, they get a double dose of danger, plastic and poison combined. The ocean is home to a complex, interwoven community of life, and microplastics are pulling it apart thread by thread. The problem doesn't just threaten individual animals. It undermines the entire web of life in the sea, reducing biodiversity and disrupting centuries-old cycles of feeding, migration, and reproduction. In this plastic-altered ocean, survival is no longer just about finding food, it's about avoiding the synthetic traps we've scattered across the water column. What begins in the ocean never stays in the ocean. As microplastics move through marine ecosystems, they don't stop with fish and whales. They reach us too. The seafood we eat is now one of the most direct pathways for plastic to enter the human body. Mussels, oysters, and small fish are especially vulnerable, often consumed whole, plastics and all. Studies from recent years have confirmed the presence of microplastics in almost every type of seafood sampled, from wild-caught species to farm-raised varieties. But the invasion doesn't stop at our dinner plates. These microscopic fragments have made their way into nearly every corner of modern life. They've been detected in tap water, bottled water, and even in the air we breathe. Microplastics are now found in everything from table salt to fresh produce, a result of both contaminated water and airborne plastic dust settling on crops. Car tires, clothing fibers, and industrial dust contribute to this constant invisible fallout. Recent research suggests that the average person may be ingesting tens of thousands of microplastic particles each year. Some estimates go even higher, approaching over 200,000 particles annually when inhalation is factored in. Scientists have now identified plastic in human organs, blood, and even placental tissue. Alarmingly, these particles have also crossed the blood-brain barrier in some animal studies, raising serious questions about potential neurological effects. The health risks of this exposure are still being uncovered. Plastic itself is not just inert waste, it often carries harmful additives and contaminants. Chemicals like bisphenol A, BPA, phthalates, and flame retardants are commonly used in manufacturing and can leach from the particles once inside the body. These substances have been linked to endocrine disruption, developmental issues, and inflammatory responses. In 2024, a peer-reviewed study published in the New England Journal of Medicine found a strong correlation between microplastics in arterial plaque and increased rates of stroke, heart attack, and mortality. This isn't just a problem for coastal communities or seafood lovers, it's global. Microplastics have become part of our daily environment, and their health effects may be as far-reaching as the particles themselves. As we begin to understand the true scale of the crisis, it becomes clear we are no longer just polluters. We are now also the polluted. This global crisis didn't arrive overnight, and it won't be solved overnight, but we are not powerless. In fact, we are standing at a turning point, one where the decisions we make now can either lock in generations of pollution or begin the slow, determined work of restoration. The microplastic problem is a direct result of how we design, use, and discard plastic in nearly every part of our lives. Changing that system is possible, but it starts with recognizing the urgency and taking action on every level. Individually, we can reduce our own plastic footprint by avoiding single-use plastics whenever possible. Carrying reusable bags, bottles, and containers is a small but effective step when multiplied by millions. Choosing clothes made from natural fibers, buying in bulk to reduce packaging, and washing synthetic garments less frequently can also limit how much microplastic enters the water system. While these actions alone won't solve the crisis, they contribute to a cultural shift, one where convenience no longer outweighs responsibility. On a broader scale, industries and governments must lead the charge. Regulations that phase out unnecessary plastic packaging, ban harmful additives, and hold producers accountable for waste are gaining ground in parts of Europe and Asia, but stronger policies are needed worldwide. Extended producer responsibility (EPR) laws, which make manufacturers responsible for the end of life of their products, can be a game changer. Plastic alternatives made from algae, mushroom fibers, and other biodegradable materials are already on the market, but they need real investment to scale. Meanwhile, science and technology are playing catch-up. Researchers are developing filtration systems for wastewater plants that can trap microplastics before they reach the ocean. Others are working on enzymes that can break down certain plastics into harmless compounds. Cleanup efforts, such as floating barriers for surface plastic and deep-sea trawling for microplastic sediment, are still in early stages, but they show promise when paired with prevention. Most importantly, awareness is spreading. What was once an invisible crisis is now impossible to ignore. Documentaries, grassroots campaigns, and scientific discoveries are all helping to shine a light on the problem and make it part of the global conversation. Education is key. The more people understand the life cycle of plastic and its consequences, the stronger the push will be for meaningful change. The plastic invasion didn't start in the ocean. It started with us, but that also means the solution begins with us. We can choose smarter design, stricter laws, and more sustainable habits. We can support innovation, demand accountability, and refuse to accept a world where plastic pollution is the norm. The oceans cannot speak for themselves, but if they could, they would tell us they are choking. It is our responsibility to listen and to act before their silence becomes permanent.